Indie games are absolutely wild. Developed by Far Out Games and published by Konami Digital Entertainment, Deliver at All Costs is an action-adventure delivery game where you're driving from point A to point B down roads, highways, or straight through someone's living room. You know, Far Out Games gave me a key, and honestly, I was kinda sorta interested. I remember seeing it in a trailer during what I think was a game preview. Just goes to show how much I cared at the time. But it was the experience of the game itself, the story it was telling, and the message that it was giving me, and the moments of joy that I had that were really fun, and what made it really special, at least to me personally. See, the game itself is pretty straightforward. Deliver items from point A to point B, but it's how you deliver those items and what the item is that greatly changes your experience from level to level. But you can't get into any of this without knowing the plot first, so strap in, because this is, dear God, here we go. Deliver at All Costs might look like a goofy delivery game at first, and completely honest, it is, but it's also so much more than that, right? You play as Winston. He's a guy with a mysterious past who signs on to a struggling delivery company in the quirky island town of St. Monique. At first, it's all chaos and comedy, right? Delivering flopping fish, racing RC cars down Main Street, stealing your competitors' items. It's fun, it's absurd, and it's honestly a little charming. But the deeper you go, the more the cracks start to show. You see, Winston's coworkers start asking questions, and the company is just falling apart, and Winston is haunted by dreams, hallucinations, and memories of something he's clearly running from. And that's when the game just goes completely left. What starts as insane deliveries quickly turns into a layered mystery, you know, one about identity, secrets buried in the past, and a company caught in the middle of something way bigger than just boxes and roadmaps. You know, you get a taste of corporate espionage, strange tech experiments, and moment where the entire tone shifts from goofy comedy to what just happened. But you know, when things get even heavier, the game still keeps strong grips on its personality. At least that's the way I was seeing it during the entire experience, and it never stops being fun. Whether you're dodging cows on a highway or trying to deliver a suspiciously glowing package, the experience itself, at least for the story, given the circumstances that the game was in, right? To me, it was really fun, and honestly really entertaining. And that, in contrast, the difference between absurdity and depth, chaos and character, that's what makes Deliver at All Costs, at least to me, right, really stand out. And trust me, there are moments in this game you'll be thinking about long after the engine cuts off. And to be honest, right, the story does have its holes. Like, the biggest problem from start to finish, I would say, regarding the story is that there are points in time where it just really feels like a completely different game than what it started off with, which on one point I understand, right? You gotta have a plot twist somewhere, but I feel like there's a difference between a plot twist and absolutely losing the plot, which in my opinion, Deliver at All Costs did kind of do towards the tail end of it, and I really think trying to set itself up for a sequel probably wasn't the right idea. I think this personally should have just been a one and done, and if they make a second game, then cool, that's awesome, but that's just my personal opinion. But you know, like I said, there were some really cool missions in this game that had me genuinely laughing for a good minute. Like, here's an example. I had to deliver a marlin to this guy who wanted to court a fisherman's daughter. Now, this dude looked like he couldn't catch a fish if his soul depended on it, and apparently that's the case, because even the dad sees it. So, sure as shit, this guy decides to empty his wallet on a large marlin half the size of my truck that has me deliver it. You see, it was during the actual delivery that I was confused as to why my vehicle was jerking around from my control, only to realize it was the fish in the back seat flipping and flopping around. And you know, and then to keep it alive and happy, I had to run into barrels of spoiled fish, because if it dies, then it's my problem. And you know, to really just put a cherry on top of the whole situation, he tells me to go drop this thing into a barrel of paint to make it snow white so he can drop off an albino marlin. Not to mention, this little bastard kept jumping out of my truck bed, and I had to go chase him down, I think like 3-4 times. And I can't tell you why. Maybe it's because I'm an idiot, but I was laughing way harder than I should have been. I don't know what it was, man, but every time that fish jumped out of my truck bed, it just made me laugh instead of pissing me off. Or take this next adventure I had. I went to get in my truck and start a new delivery, and I was tasked to go check in on these clearly fresh, clearly not completely rotten watermelons. And the woman this dude's trying to sell to, yeah, she clearly caught on to his act. And he, in all his infinite wisdom, decides to hire me to fix his issue. And you know, first thing about this mission, I actually had a counter cursor at the top of my screen, see, only so many of these watermelons could fall out from my cart. And if they did, I was greeted with this wonderful picture of the inside of the rotten melon, which on one hand, this mission kind of threw me off as a whole, right? Because the idea, at least the game was showing to me, that it's to go as fast as possible to get the mission done as soon as possible. But okay, sure, whatever, you know, I kept pushing onwards, and eventually we stopped at this silo, and the watermelons get sucked into this vat of pesticide because, hey, you know, a little bit of poison never really hurt anybody. And at this point, the humor was already starting to get to me. But these melons still look like shit, so we had to fix that part too. So this goober decides to say, to hell with it, and paint all of these melons so they appear as new as possible. And this entire interaction was just, it was just comedy for the sake of comedy. I don't, to me, it was funny. And the guy went back to sell his rotten food to the same woman who rejected it the first time. And she's jumping up and down with joy about how perfect her watermelons are. You know, it's missions like these that were just fun. No, it wasn't some intense shootout. It wasn't some hardcore, deep storytelling. It was just fun for the sake of fun. Goofy storytelling and level design just meant to keep you smiling. And that's honestly what I was appreciating throughout my entire interaction. But while the missions were fun and entertaining, I think the characters were also a huge part of my enjoyment, at least for this game, right? Because you see, the main character, Winston, for example, bro's just trying to live a peaceful life. Well, peaceful in quotations, a life away from whatever nonsense he got into in his past, and he's seemingly someone important. Hell, almost everyone thinks they know him. He's got one boss he actually likes, the other's a complete jerk-off, but it's this idea of a dude trying to escape his past while also trying to start a new life for himself that I really attracted to. You know, I also think it's kind of cool that throughout the game you get these flashbacks of his past, kind of presented to you in like a comic book style strip. At least that's how I interpreted it. And from what I gather, Mr. Green was an engineer. At least that's the base level answer for a probably much more complicated one, which after learning what he's really up to, I can absolutely promise you there's no way you could guess the truth if you were held at gunpoint and forced to come up with an answer and had 1,000 years to do so. There's just no way, man. But moreover, what I was mostly enjoying about my experience was this game wasn't trying to be the next big thing. It wasn't Doom or Cyberpunk. It wasn't Forza. It wasn't trying to be some large AAA title that you sink thousands and thousands of hours into. It was meant to be a fun experience that makes you smile. An experience that doesn't require some steep learning curve or extra DLC. It's a simple story that actually helps this time because the game itself is simpler and smaller in scope. And it's out on an Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and even Steam. And for me personally, is this a game I'll sit on all day and night? No, of course not. That's what games like Ark are for. But will I still hop on to chase that feeling of pure joy? Yeah, of course I will. You know, Deliver at All Costs was fun, and honestly, I think that's enough for me, because you know, here's the thing about smaller games like these, right? We as a community, and I think I gotta stop myself from doing this too, are so used to comparing games like these to games that are much larger in scale. Like, for example, take Deliver at All Costs and Hi-Fi Rush. You know, when I was going into this, that was the game that I assumed it'd be closest in comparison to, as far as like a team and a dev team, and I absolutely loved Hi-Fi Rush. I thought it was great. But you know, trying to compare an indie studio team to a team that's much larger in scope, I think you have to kind of lower your expectations for games like these. You know, when I was going into this, I didn't expect some absolute banger of a story with some crazy characters that I remember forever, right? I expected a story that was alright, okay at best, and gameplay that was fun and entertaining. That's what I was sold on. That's what I was promised. And you know, as far as that part goes, I think I can say that, yeah, man, the gameplay, as far as this game goes, the gameplay is 100% its strongest aspect, right? It's not the story. It's great, but it isn't. It's not the story. It's not the characters that you meet, because honestly, some of the characters are kind of forgettable. You're playing this game for the gameplay of it, right? And even then, the gameplay does have two big problems that I really want to touch on, right? Because again, yeah, I know they gave me this key, but I'm sorry, I'm still going to tell you guys how I really feel about it. I don't care who I get a key from. But the point is this, right? There's two main problems that this game has, at least from the way I was explaining or playing it, I guess I should say. The first one is that, yeah, you 100% can destroy anything. That's the whole point of the game. You can drive your car through anything. But the problem is you're not really punished or rewarded for doing so. Like, as an example, when you do a mission, right, you can complete it any way you want, but I feel like there should be a difference between completing it with a lot of destruction and completing it with little destruction. Like, I'm surprised that there's not a thing built into this game where as you go throughout the story and you're working for this We Deliver company, that if you complete missions by just absolutely wrecking the city, that it's not shown in like the radio, like, oh, this guy guy who works for We Deliver is destroying everything, and now people are looking at this company strange, right? Just none of this is included. Even rewarded, you don't get or lose anything for doing all this destruction. It's just there to be there, which on one hand is cool. I fucking love it. It allows me to just absolutely slam my truck through someone's bedroom. It's awesome. It's funny. I'm in the idea of, if you're gonna have this system in place, you have to find a way for it to either reward or punish the player, because right now there's neither. Like I said, it's just there to be there. That's my first problem. My second problem comes down to the actual pacing of some of these missions. Like, for example, the pacing of the Marlin mission, where you're trying to get this fish to the delivery point. You're on a time limit, right? Because if this fish jumps out of the truck or dies, you have to redo the mission all over again. But the watermelon mission, you're basically crawling through it because you don't want these melons to fall off the back of your truck. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's pretty weird to have completely opposite ends of the spectrum for your game about delivering. I guess this could be a me thing, and maybe I'm nitpicking, but essentially it boils down to this. You're gonna get this game for the gameplay, right? It's not something I would go into expecting a super cool, amazing story. Yes, the story is good, 110%. Me personally, like I said, I really enjoyed it, but that's not why I'm playing it. I'm playing it for the gameplay. But honestly, that's enough for me. The game, for what it's trying to do, what it's trying to accomplish, is fucking awesome. And I genuinely think that for $30, this is a game that I'll be going back to probably time and time again just to kill time, or if I just want to relax for a few minutes. And I genuinely think you should check it out too. I think that if you play Deliver at All Costs with the correct expectations that you're going into it, right? Again, it's a $30 indie game. Gotta kind of lower them a bit. I think you're gonna have an absolutely amazing time. And I think you should check it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave a link in the description of this video so you can go ahead and check out the game for yourself. And if you do choose to pick it out, it even helps with the channel, which is awesome. And if you noticed, I got this video out faster than last time. That's right, I'm trying. So that's all I really got, man. I'm really trying to crank these videos out faster, but you know, that's gonna be it for you. That is Deliver at All Costs. Seriously, go check it out. I think you'll love it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit me up in the comments. I love responding to you guys and hearting all your comments and interactions. So besides all that, I'm out of here. I love you guys.